Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Well, very well, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I had a chance to look at your website and read a few of your blogs and listen to a couple of your podcasts, and we have a lot to talk about.
Okay, I'm pumped. This is really fun.
So, first, I wanted to, I don't know how much you know about me, but I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background about me so that we can speak the same language, especially on entrepreneurship, which is where I think we have the most common denominator.
That's awesome.
So, I'm a publisher. So I published several publications. I'm a retired Air Force pilot. I flew C-130s for 23 years.
Thank you for service.
Thank you. And I'm the president, or was the president, of the National Equality Media Association, which was a group of 100 publishers. I am now the executive director of the Equalitas Advisory Board, which is the advisory board to my own company, Equalitas Media, made up of 10 or 12, I think now, of the top LGBT business leaders and media professionals in the industry. And I have a whole bunch of different other things. Plus, I'm going to fly a World War II era DC-3 around the world in a couple of years to be the first.
So you're kind of lazy, is what you're saying.
I'm kind of lazy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of lazy. And then I do my podcast. And then, of course, thankfully, I have Nick to make me look good, though.
Awesome. Everybody needs a Nick.
God, I don't even want to imagine my life without him. No, you're not getting a raise. Oh, wait, I don't pay you anything anyway.
You get exposure.
Oh, my God, I'm telling you. If it wasn't, I'll make Nick blush for 1 second. But if it wasn't for Nick, I don't even know how I would manage all of this technical stuff and this social media stuff and website stuff, and God knows. So I have a lot of.
You get to show up and be awesome, and he does the rest.
I get to show up and try to be awesome. But how's the pandemic treating you? You doing okay?
Yeah, it's crazy. I moved up to Boise, Idaho, March 30th. I was born and raised in the Bay Area, Northern California.
Oh, I used to live in Emeryville.
Oh, okay. I'm a fifth generation San Franciscan. I was in Brentwood, but East Bay is where I grew up.
That's considered East Bay. We lived on a 60-foot sailboat for 3 years at Emeryville Marina.
Oh my God, small world.
Isn't that weird? So that was my exposure. We had the best view of the bay. We used to take our boat to Angel Island and just drop anchor and hike on the island, or we'd go to Sausalito. Nice. And then what was it called over there? Raccoon Straits. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And then a good friend of mine was the harbor mistress for Pier 39.
Oh my God, very cool.
We go over there and then listen to the seals or whatever I'm from New York, so I don't know what they were, but they're seals or I don't know.
Sea lions out of the pier. Yep.
Yeah. They would scream, I swear. I mean, you never heard such a ruckus.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of them, but yeah. Yeah, Bay Area, it's not bad here. You move from California with 39 people to Idaho and there's like 1.7 million. I'm like, I work from home. Like my life hasn't changed that much.
Yeah, I love Idaho. I used to own a hotel in Pocatello.
I don't know where Pocatello is.
Pocatello, Idaho. It was out in the middle of nowhere. It was an economy inn. I bought it off of. I don't know why I bought it. It was one of those things where you're like, I want to see if I can buy this because I saw it online. And it was owned by a dentist, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just carry the note. It would give me $5,000, and you can have the hotel." And
okay,
it didn't make a lot of money, but it was Pocatello, and we at the time we were living in California as well, so it was quite the event. But anyway, so now I have a little bit more focused life. So I'm in media and publishing mainly, and then content creation. So and that's what really sparked my interest when I was reading about you. It's like you do all talk about me being taking a rest. I don't know how you do all that. How do you squeeze all this? You're a content marketer, web designer, digital strategy, podcast host.
Well, the web stuff, I don't do that anymore. I don't do a ton of services. Like the planner is the content creators planner, strategy courses is like, that's a full-time gig. Like my kids are out of the house. It's like, I get to do what I want to do.
I know. When we have a daughter and we have two kids, my husband and I, and they're grown. And actually, one of them is coming. One of them is coming for a visit in August. They're on the West Coast. They're in Portland, Oregon. But it's amazing what you can get done when they're out from underfoot.
Yeah. My son is 19 in Florida. My daughter's actually here visiting from Southern California this week. She's finishing school, and she's easy, but it's like you just forget what it's like to have other people around.
What I remember the most is, wow, the house stays clean so much longer. That was like the first thing I noticed. It's like, oh wow, the house stays cleaner, and we don't go through as much milk.
Yeah, totally. Or anything in the fridge.
Yes, because we all know that teenagers, they're like bottomless pits. I just anyway.
Yeah,
that was all that. But let's talk about you now. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing and what you do and why you do it.
So what I'm doing today, I had this crazy idea like almost 2 years ago now to come up with a physical content creators planner. It stemmed from, have you heard of the bullet journal?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So I got a bullet journal and I started playing with it and I was like, God, this is way too structured for me. But way back when, in like 1998, I owned a scrapbook store. And I had some font stickers published that I designed. So I kind of fell back in love with pen and paper and I love the bullet journal. So I started playing with it. And like one day I would like map out a funnel. The next day I would take a spread and I'd be like, what do I want my life to look like? And so but I always found myself going back to pen and paper when I was mapping out marketing. It was just kind of helped my brain process stuff. So I got this bullet journal. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I live for it. And
I have all these gadgets.
Right. But the bullet journal was just a little too structured for me. But then I realized there's like this massive not underground, but there's like people that have like million subscribers on YouTube that are like bullet journal enthusiasts and they draw their spreads. And I was like, oh my God, there's like this huge journaling world online that people are doing stuff digitally. And so I kind of tested it and I played with it. Like I took some pictures and shared it on Instagram stories. And like the first picture I just shared, the next picture I use a hashtag journaling, and it went from like 50 views to like 550 views. And I was like, there's something here. So, it's like in the meantime, I'd done for you podcast services. I did the website stuff. Like I started this, 12 years ago, thinking I was going to be.
Can I interrupt you 1 second?
Yeah.
So I want to learn more about what you said about the hashtags, right? Mm-hmm. Because that has always been something that I never really kind of got the grasp of. So you said you made a post and then you used a specific hashtag, mm-hmm. and then all of a sudden you got a whole bunch of views or
yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about that. Tell me about hashtags. Like why would someone need to use them, and what did they do? Maybe you can. I'll find.
Yeah, and I'm not brilliant with the hashtags, but it's really search, like similar to keywords for blog posts and stuff on your website. Hashtags make it easy for people to search for topics and categories, right? And so it was a way for me to validate this idea, was all I did. And because I'd been paying attention to stuff and, and it's like I got back into lettering and all these things. So I'm following all these art people and stuff, but I kept coming back to the journaling piece and how many people were connecting that to online business. And they had created businesses around journaling. And so I just tested it. Like you can go into Instagram and just search hashtags. And so I just looked, I love making up hashtags, to be honest with you, but, the hashtag journaling just got so many views and I thought there is something here. There's absolutely something here.
Oh, interesting. So basically a hashtag is like the old library card catalog, right? So mm-hmm. Would that be a way to describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just a way to search. And then anybody who has used that hashtag will pull up in that search for you. Excuse me.
Oh, God.
So that's it. I mean, that's it. It's just an easier way to search categories and topics.
Okay. So then continue. I'm sorry. I just wanted to stop you on that to have a better understanding of hashtags.
Yeah, no worries. So just kind of to back up a little bit, like I had done a lot of service work as I was doing this. When I started my business, I thought I was going to be the information marketing millionaire just by writing ebooks. I had no idea what I was doing. So I never wanted to do websites, to be honest with you. I used to be the WordPress chick. I fell in love with WordPress. But it was just like things, I don't know how you feel about your podcast, but it was the WordPress chick podcast. Then I pivoted to the Kim Doyal show. So I started like in 2013 And it blew up my business because it's such a connector. It's such a relationship builder.
Sure.
It's a trust builder. And I'm like, God, if somebody's willing to listen to me for an hour, like we could go grab a beer together. Like we could hang, like this is awesome, So, and I did that because it was fun. And so it's like, I kind of have this tenacious quality and I just kept going, but really feel like content is my sweet spot. I started Facebook group content creators, 3 years ago now. And I did it just with the intention to keep showing up and connecting and engaging. Every time I do that, stuff works for me. So I pivoted.
I'm going to say, I always believe that for entrepreneurs, the minute I disconnect from following my instinct or following my gut instinct, if you will, it always goes south. And it always goes south because I am going against what I know I should be doing or what I want to be doing. And I've learned over many, many years now, more years than I care to remember, that to follow your instinct with stuff like that, and it never has disappointed me.
No, every single time I've done something because I think I need to generate money, or it's like I need to put this out, or I need to do this. It's a waste of time. I never make the income I want to do. There are like 3 things I've done. One was the podcast, which was just paid off, and it's intangible, right? Podcasting is kind of this intangible thing that you can see that it drives traffic maybe to a website, you get downloads, but it's not, you can't necessarily track a lead or track a conversion or track a sale unless someone tells you, I want to hire you for coaching because I listen to your podcast. But I literally just did it to have more fun. That was why I wanted a podcast.
That's how I feel about my podcast. I love the podcast because I love talking, right? That's the first thing. And so the podcast is a platform for me to talk. But more importantly, I have met so many interesting people who have been guests on the show that I'm like, oh, like the guy who Jeff Bonanno from Do Something Nice, and his whole thing was he does something nice and he doesn't tell anybody and just pays it forward. And political people and entertainment people, informative people, and everything in between. Entrepreneurs, publishers, people that have had all sorts of various experiences in their life. And I think that's what I enjoy about it. It's not like watching the news. It's actually you're talking to the person that lived it or is living. Right. So that's a big difference. And every time I do a podcast, I walk away feeling changed, a little bit uplifted or challenged or what have you. And I enjoy it. Now, I will tell you from a technical standpoint, there have been many times, as Nick could attest, that I wanted to throw my computer and all of my equipment out the window of my 14th floor building because of sound or various different things, or hosting doesn't work or doesn't record my voice. I think we've done 2 shows where I thought, oh, these are awesome shows, only to find out I forgot to hit record.
I used to have sticky notes like, hit record. Yeah.
So Kim, on that note, I'm going to share something with you.
Gotta love it.
So I just wanted to say, I dropped all the paper. So here in Chicago, it's 90 something degrees and humid. So I have the fan going on in my studio today.
Flowing papers everywhere.
Yeah, even though we have air conditioning, but still. So anyway, I want to ask a couple of questions. So I read that you help online business owners develop and implement a customized content strategy. So explain what that is exactly.
So there's 2 pieces to this, okay? And like we have this content framework for the planner that we use, and it's basically your content should support your business goals. You have to start with business goals. What's the content that will support achieving that? What's a call to action to capture the customer? And then what are you selling them, right? It's kind of basic. But the other piece of this, and this is my other hashtag that I created and love, is everything is content. Like, I don't know if you can see it. I have a little everything is content. Because truly, it's that storytelling piece that connects with people. And I think people often get started with content and they think, well, I need to know SEO, or I need to know keywords, or I'm not a good writer, which, like you're not going to get better at doing something by not doing it. So just friggin' start doing it. But with content, like you have to get your feet wet. You got to figure out and find your voice through telling stories and talking and engaging. Like, I don't know anybody, unless you've been an online entrepreneur for a long time, that's going to go, This is what my customers ask me. These are my business goals. Like it's not this natural, automatic. Most people are like, I don't know what to write about. I run out of ideas. And literally, like, I could write a blog post on this water bottle and turn it into a call to action because it's just practice and storytelling and engaging. And so, the content strategy piece that we work, it's always start with your business goals. What's the content you can create to support it? How do you capture the lead? And then what are you selling? Like, it's not rocket science, really. Most entrepreneurs don't have a ton of time, so you can't just, there are times where I'm like, I just feel like talking and telling a story. And I don't care. I don't care if there's a keyword. I don't care if there's SEO value, but it connects with my audience. Like here's a great example. I tested doing a almost daily email for a while, and it was just a test for myself. And it also paid off exponentially. I wanted to do, it's kind of like a story style email with one call to action. And there was this guy, Ben Settle, that I'd subscribed to his emails. I've been watching him do it for a year and a half. I'm like, I'm just going to do this. People may unsubscribe. I may sell nothing. I don't care. This is totally for me. Can I be disciplined? Can I sit down for every day and write for 15 minutes to 30 minutes? And nothing happened for like a month. And then all of a sudden I started getting replies and like sales tripled on an affiliate product and all of these things happened.
Let me ask you a question. When you give me an example of a call to action. So you said that you would write and then you would have a call to action. So give me an example of what you would use, or what you would describe as what a call to action would be like.
Well, it's either to listen to a podcast. Like every time I do a podcast, I send an email to go listen to it, and I want them to go. I send them back to the site. A lot of people subscribe via phones or whatever. Or it's to go check out a product, to attend a webinar, to join a Facebook group. It's just to take an action that brings them into my world and connects and engages with them, right? Because if they're on my email list, I don't necessarily need them to sign up again, but the email is a call to action, and you can start segmenting, right? So you can say, all these people are in my Facebook group now, or all these people wanted to go to a webinar, or these people like my podcast. So you can start really looking at serving your audience where they are on their journey.
So is building your email list a critical component of what you would consider your success?
Absolutely.
It's funny. I've spoken to several podcasters and about that, and we use this in publishing. Like my email list for my some of my publications, I think, run anywhere from 20 to 50,000.
Wow.
Across the platforms, right?
Yeah.
We don't even use it to its full potential.
Mm-hmm.
The email list, and this is another thing too, is piggybacking on other people's email lists, like Key West, for example, right? So one of the publications that I have is a travel publication. It's called Gaycation Magazine. It's a glossy publication. And one of our advertisers and supporters is Visit Key West, right? Key West has an email list of 15,000 people. And very often they say, oh, if you want to be on my email list, just send me something and we'll put it on. They won't give me their list, obviously, but they'll put whatever I want on their list. Mm-hmm. And I don't do it.
Oh my God.
I don't do it, because I think I'm so busy and I don't, I just want to focus on my own stuff. And I probably could quadruple my email reach if I just took advantage of that. Now, as a leader in media, and I'm very well respected in that sphere, all of my friends are publishers. They're all publishers. They're not reporters or writers. They're publishers. They own their publications. So all I have to do is say, hey, I want you to put a link to my podcast on your website, and they'll do it. No cost involved. I can put out a full page ad in some of my publications, and which I do occasionally to promote my podcast. But more than often than not, I don't do that. And so when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, I'm wondering I'm wasting so much opportunity that other people would kill for. And I just made a note to myself about that, is because you inspired me with that one comment about the email list. And I was thinking to myself, I always say that I want to do more with the email list, but I haven't. And now I have to do it because I made a sticky note. It's official.
Well, can I tell you two quick little email stories?
Yeah.
So with the Content Creators Planner, we obviously have, we run paid traffic. We spend about $1,000 a day to run paid traffic. So, and sometimes we've been super profitable. Other times we're just profitably acquiring customers.
When you say paid traffic, what, on social media?
Facebook and Instagram ads.
Okay.
But so we really have drilled down. We use Active Campaign. We really have drilled down, and we've got nurture sequences. Then based on what they bought, we offer a class or this or that or whatever. Every single email in our nurture sequence makes money now. I mean,
Really?
and if we send a broadcast, and it's not a huge list, right? It's under 9,000, but at the same time, it's like to send an email broadcast, just sharing stuff, and to be able to make $1,000 from an email, and where our only call to action is, P.S. Have you seen our bundles? Because we don't have a ton of products, right? So it's an asset. I mean, your email list is a huge asset, and when you nurture them correctly, and you have a relationship, like we do, just a newsletter. We just launched it last week, where it's just value. Like, here's an article, here's a product, here's a tool, whatever. We're just sharing and connecting. The other story I was going to share is I did an email for Kim Doyal, to my list. I have 2 separate lists. Gosh, this was probably 4 years ago. And it was a personal email. I was widowed in 2003, and it was like the 14th anniversary or something. And it was the first time it was a Sunday, and I woke up and it wasn't the first thing on my mind. And I was just grateful. A few hours later, I was like, oh my gosh, how nice to be on the other side of that, right? Like, to realize I got through this, and this was a really difficult time in my life. And so I sent an email to my list, and the subject line was, in loving memory and a personal message of hope. And that's all it was. It was simply to share, look, you're going to get through it. Your dreams are worth pursuing. If I can do this, you can. That was it. I must have gotten 30 email responses back on a Sunday. And then I was like, screw it. I'm going to publish this as a blog post. To date, it's my highest trafficked post with the most comments to this day. And
Really?
it's just, And so you have no idea what's going to resonate with your audience, but the more relatable and connectable you are to them. And it's crazy because it's always been in my bio. I assumed everybody knew it. You get tired of telling your story. But I had so many people say, I had no idea. Wow. And I was like, I guess I need to keep telling the story.
Point, Kim, because if you think about it, you can get sick of your telling your own story because you're telling it. But there's going to be many people that have never heard that before. Right. And you have to speak to them. You have to write because of them. Because even though you think, I've heard this story. My husband says, oh my God, you've told that story 1,000 times. But to him, it's 1,000 times. But there are probably 1,000 people that have never heard it.
Exactly. And there's value. And that's why you're sharing it, right? Because there was a lesson learned. There was a takeaway. It's a connecting point, whatever. And it's like, I don't know, like I totally subscribe to Brene Brown's, we're hardwired for connection. And when you're an entrepreneur and you are out here doing it alone, or you're trying, or you see people that are doing $1 million launches, you're like, why can't I sell a $39 product to save my life? So it's nice to know you're not in it alone, or somebody else started 12 years ago and they finally hit it, or whatever it is. It connects you with your audience.
Have you ever seen that graphic where it's an iceberg?
Yeah. And underneath.
That is my effing love. If I've ever, that spoke to me, and I have it somewhere in my studio. It's, people say, oh my goodness, you're the this, that, and this, and the other thing. And what they don't realize is the 500 disappointments, the 200 failures, the constant imposter syndrome that you have to overcome because you don't think you deserve success. You have 50, not monkeys, you have silverback gorillas on your back telling you, don't try it, I wouldn't do it, and this and that. And yet you still try and forge forward. But all they see is the tip where it's like, oh, you had some success. Wow, it must have been so easy for you.
Well, and you know what? That's why I love sharing it. People are like, you're so honest about your failures. Like I tried doing a SaaS with a friend, a software as a service product. Yep. And it took us 1.5 years. And in that time, like I had a bunch of stuff going on with my son. He got really sick, and it was like we launched it and then 3 months later shut it down. So I was like, this is what I learned from it. And I did a whole podcast episode, had nothing but love for him. We're still good friends. So it's just sharing that. Or when we launched the planner, I don't know why I thought it was going to be a great idea to do a Kickstarter in December, right? So we realized by like the second or third week, we're not going to hit our goal. We need to pivot this. We have all these people who've already pledged. And so we got WooCommerce set up on our site. We pivoted pre-sales to our site. I went in and I messaged every single Kickstarter person. So then we shared a year later, we did a whole live stream, and it was how we went from a failed Kickstarter to $40,000 a month in sales. Like, so it's sharing the hard work and the tenacity, and that, and then people trust you more. They want to do business with you even more.
That's right. And I'm going to share my Kickstarter experience. year and a half ago, I launched a Kickstarter to help fund for the acquisition of the airplane that I want to fly, which is a DC-3. And it was $100,000. It wasn't a tremendous amount of money. And I thought, geez, people are going to see this and going to say, oh, wow, this is an iconic aircraft of aviation. How, it's going to be so, dramatic. He's going to fly around the world, be the first gay pilot to circumnavigate the globe by air. Everyone was going to line up and support it. I started the Kickstarter campaign, and I'd seen some instances where projects were funded like in 3 days, and by the 28th day, we had raised $300.
Well, that's exactly it.
And I was like, okay, this is not going to work, right? I'm pretty sure unless an angel comes in at the last minute. And then after it was failed, all of the people that were detractors posted all over social media as like making fun of the fact that we only made, right? You know what I mean? It not only did it fail, but there was a layer of a humiliation on top of that as well. And it was very humbling experience. And I attribute a lot of it, not because the project wasn't worthy, but because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. We didn't know how to use Facebook. We didn't know how to target audiences and this or that or whatever. And so that's what I think that story that you just said is resonated with me, because most people, when they start a Kickstarter, they think they're going to get funded. But the truth of that is that most people do not get funded. That's the story.
There is. And if you look at it, because really, and we had done all the sourcing. My business partner with the planner has had her own graphic design business. She's been in this for 30 years working by herself. And so she had some connections in printing. But it was one of those things that the more legwork you do, you may as well just pre-sell it yourself, unless you really have that traction, that audience, and that amount of people that you can drive that will automatically support the Kickstarter, whether they're buying it from Kickstarter, Indiegogo, your website, right? You know that it would sell regardless. And so I think you do a little bit of homework. And we ended up finding the best printer, highest quality, lowest minimum. We completely pre-funded the whole thing.
Let me ask you a question. Who do you use as your printer?
BookLogic's in Atlanta. They're fantastic.
If you ever want to just get another quote, as the president of NEMA, which represented over 50 print publications, I negotiated a broad contract with a company out of Denver called Publication Printers, and they do a tremendous job and at a tremendous price for all of the publishers. And and as a matter of fact, I'll email you their connection and the salesperson's name just so you can have it.
Okay, and, that's awesome.
He's a great guy. His name is David Greenberry, and I've been working with him for years. And in our industry, printing is the number one cost in producing a publication. Yeah. So I want to get into a couple of things. I want to make sure that we cover some things, Kim. First of all, how did you get into this work, right? Because I read a little bit about you. This was not where you were.
No.
So I'm curious, because that's another thing too, is I want to share this, and this is, when I was reading about you, is so fascinating. I could have spent more time. But one of the things that struck with me is, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, oh, you're going to be or 10 years ago, you're going to be in publishing and printing and media and whatever, I'd be like, are you crazy? I have no experience in that at all.
Yeah.
Right. And yet here I am. So that, when I saw that about you, I was like, I wonder what her transition was like. How did you get into this line of work?
It's funny. I went to, well, first of all, like, I've always had this entrepreneurial drive. Like, I always thought there was something else I was supposed to do with my life. Right. And I tried multiple things, like the scrapbook store, retail, like all that stuff. I did contract recruiting and stuff. And I went to the Learning Annex in San Francisco, put on a Wealth Expo, right, in 2006. Funny side note, Trump was the keynote speaker. Trump, Tony Robbins, and Robert Kiyosaki. Anyways, but so a friend and I went to, they do like
the rich man,
rich dad, poor dad. Yeah,
that guy. I met him. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah, and so, but it was huge, right? Learning Annex was huge, and so, but we went to one of the little offshoot sessions, and it was a guy talking about internet marketing, and I was like, oh my god! And let me just tell you too, like, I was not technical at all. Like, my husband was a tech guy. I was like, how do you attach something to email? But I loved the idea of it. And then I had listened to, I've always been like an audiophile. Like, I had CDs and cassettes in my car, right? Do you remember Crown Books?
I do.
Okay. I spent 10 years with Crown Books. I was a district manager for them in San Francisco. So like, I always had cassette tapes in my car. but I had bought Mark Victor Hansen, one of the Chicken Soup for the Soul guys, had this CD set, and it was called Build Your Mega Speaking Empire, because I always wanted to be a speaker. Mm-hmm. And I'm listening to it, and one of the speakers at his event was another internet marketer. I'm like, I know there's something here. I know there's something here. And so it was 2008. I just, I'd been in retail. I had lost my husband in 2003. I had a small settlement around his death, nothing to retire on. But I'm like, I'm going all in. I'm going to make this work. I'm going to figure it out. I signed up for a course, and I just stuck with it. Like, I started bartering for websites. Like, I was having tile done in my house. I'm like, hey, you want to do another room and I'll redo your website? They're like, sure. So I just figured it out as I went. That was it. I was just determined.
I just love that story because truthfully, I was sitting here as you're telling me, I'm getting goosebumps because you're the first person that I've chatted with in a while that sort of strikes that entrepreneurial spirit that people don't realize what it takes. And the comment that you made, which is really something that I've done many times, is you're either in or you're out. There is no halfway. Mm-mm. And so many times I call it swinging for the fences. And I just said this to Nick the other day when we were talking. I said, I'm swinging for the fences on what I'm building right now with my media company. And I'm all in. And when you're all in, you don't think about it too often. But when you're all in, it's all risk.
Absolutely.
Risking everything. And so when you're successful, if you're successful, but in your mind as an entrepreneur, you're like, of course I'm going to be successful. But there's always that big if. But you have to be all in. You can't just have one foot in and one foot out, because that is the recipe for certain failure. And the thing that I think that is the most fascinating is entrepreneurs like yourself. They put everything on. They put everything on the line, and I think a lot of people forget the fact that is what it takes.
Yeah.
And that is a scary thing. They don't realize how many times, and I'm sure I'm speaking to you and listening to you, I know that you've gone through this. You sit alone in a room and you're like, what the hell am I doing? And how is this going to work? And, I have, if I jeopardize my house, or I jeopardize this, or if I have no money, or this or that, and yet you still do it, and you still move forward.
Well, yeah, because the thought, honestly, having, like, as an example, this in the Bay Area, I was like, I cannot go back to commuting to a job that I'm working 60 hours a week. Like, you hit a point, right? Where, have you ever heard that exercise? I want to say it was Frank Kern, internet marketer, who plan out your ideal everyday day. And it's like, I'm living it. I do it, right? And it's like, I love my life, the freedom, like my lifestyle, like, and it was just, and I swear to God, DJ, it was more than anything, it's mindset, right? It's
oh my God. No, you're just giving me so many goosebumps that I just want to, and you're touching on so many different things, is that I'm 60. I just turned 60 on July 1st, right?
I just turned 50 on July 6th. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And my husband's he just turned 50 on July 8th. So this is a big week for us. But one of the things I look back, I've been in, other than my military career, which I joined when I was 18, I have been an entrepreneur. I've been self-employed. I've created my own paycheck since then.
Wow.
And I look at it and I think to myself, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't have to get days off from my boss. I plan my own schedule. I love what I do. I work hard at it. And if I succeed, I reap all the benefits. If I fail, I reap all the consequences. There is that too. But most people don't realize that. They only see the part where you reap the rewards, right? But I like that. And I love it. And this is what keeps me going. Now, I want to ask you something. I saw when I was doing some reading about you, you have this hashtag called show up, right?
Just
hashtag,
show up.
Yeah, just show up. What does that mean? And where did that phrase come from?
Well, it came from, there's so much, excuse me, I don't know what it is about Boise, but I have been on allergy medication since I got here, but there's something about this online marketing space. And I think it's maturing. So I think we're seeing a shift, but it just seems like everybody else has their shit together. Sorry. And so you feel like,
say whatever you want.
Okay, cool. So, everybody's got their shit together but you, and there's always a new course and a new strategy and a new this and this. And it's like, I think I pivoted and I started just saying, this is where I'm at. This is what I learned. This is what I did. And this is how you can do it too. That was it. I'm like, having the courage to show up is half the battle. because then you realize, first of all, most people aren't thinking about you anyways.
That's right.
That your level of you overrate your nuisance factor most of the time. But really, when you show up with the right intention, with a heart in what you're doing, you're fine. There's always going to be trolls. There's always going to be people who have it better, who have it worse. But I just made a commitment to myself. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to just keep showing up. Like the podcast, I'm going to keep showing up and recording. And I've had times where it's gone up and down because of personal, really hardships in my life. And I'm like, it is what it is. I'm coming back. Right. And when you show up with authenticity and integrity, people are fine.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. Years ago, I was with the CPA. I had a CPA and I was in the hotel business. Right. And I was getting ready to do this very big project. And I was like, Bob, I don't know if I can do this. And I had a bad case of imposter syndrome, right? Because I never went to school for hotels, never went to school for development, never went to anything like that. He goes, DJ, I'm going to tell you something and I want you to remember it. And I said, what's that? And he said, 90% of success is showing up every day. Just show up every day. So even when I literally felt like I couldn't drag my ass out of bed because of the pressure and the fear of failure, I would drag myself out of bed. I would go to the office. We only had a small office, and I would just start my day. And eventually, that taught me the discipline that no matter how bad things get, it's temporary, and it's only a problem if you can't figure it out. You can figure it out. And I always thought I'm smarter than the problem. I know I'm smarter than the problem. And I also learned that by talking to other people and relating to other people, they are invaluable resources of information and support. And going to talk to Bob, the CPA, uplifted me because I literally was at the bottom of the barrel. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I left his office and I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm just going to show up to the office. And he used to tell me, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Yep. And it sounds kind of cliche because, you always hear those. But in that moment, Kim, it meant something to me. And I thought, okay, see, I'm getting all emotional because I'm remembering and I'm feeling all of that despair that I had at that moment because I went back to the office. I said, okay, this is a huge elephant. I have no idea how to do this, but I'm going to start with one bite. Bite.
That's it. Like literally, do you know how long it took me to do my first install of WordPress when I had deemed myself the WordPress chick? Like I went and got WordPress for Dummies and it was like going through this book and it's like, it's just, I think when the intention is right, you can figure it out. You can figure it out. And it's just, I don't know, to your point of, having that drive and that need to do something, that was always greater than the fear. Like I was very clear, at different points. Like I remember one time my mom's like, well, maybe you should get a part-time job. And I'm like, I will walk away from
everybody
this house
I don't think any entrepreneur has not heard that. My sister even says, why don't you get a job and get a stable income? You know how many times I heard that?
Right. Well, and it's like, and then my parents became my biggest champions, right? But it's like to be able to see it. And it's just, the truth is life is hard. Shit's going to come your way, right? And you get to choose how you handle it, how you deal with it, and how you move through it. I can't control a pandemic. Like we had people telling us to turn off our ads then when the protests and stuff are happening. And it's like, I don't know. I think that there's a beauty of getting older because it's just like, I have a level. You don't give a shit. And there's a level of self-trust. And I'm not willing to betray myself for somebody else ever again. It's just not going to happen. And so I don't know. It's like...
I love that, Kim, because I'm in the same boat. I'm 60 years old. I'm really, what's that word I'm thinking of? I don't really care what other people think. I'm confident about who I am and what I'm doing. I'm mindful of other people's opinions and what have you. But let me tell you, I can tell this to any entrepreneur, and any entrepreneur would relate to this. If you chase the opinions of all the people that had opinions about what you should or should not be doing, you would never do anything.
Well, and you're chasing opinions from people who haven't done it.
Right. Well, what I always say, and I said, I said one time when we were having a conversation, I said, and all the different things that I've done over my life, I can't even tell you the number of people that wanted to project their fear upon me, their fear of taking a risk, their fear of doing anything greater than what they're doing, their fear of failure. they try and project that on you to prevent you from doing something that they are fearful from doing themselves.
Absolutely,
and I think that's
totally.
another part of being an entrepreneur, is being that almost monolithic um, uh, uh, self, where you're just doing what you think you need to do, and you take in what people say, but you do what you want to do regardless.
Can I ask you a question just based on
Yeah,
your experience too? Is,
of course.
so I found an amazing therapist when I lost my husband. My friends call me "What about Bob?" because I still talk to her like 17 years later.
You don't show
And
up at their house, do you?
well, actually, she retired out of the Bay Area, so I did go visit her, and she's stuck in Costa Rica right now. So like we do calls every week. It's freaking awesome. But I remember her telling me one time, she said, Kim, people are going to hit the ball based on how you serve it. So when you come from that place of I'm doing this, it's who I like. I get way less haters. I get way less questioning of what I do in my life when I come from that place of no, this is who I am. This is what I do. Like most people in my personal life still don't understand what I do. They get it now because they can see a physical product, but for 12 years they're like, you what do you do with you build websites? I'm like, anyways, yeah, that's what I do. So it's just when you come from that place of so I am, this is what I do, I don't find the questioning and the fear coming at me anymore. I really, not from people I know anyways.
Interesting. Well, being in LGBT media, and being a moderate, I'm attacked from both sides all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got a pretty thick skin, because of that, but I follow I trust my instincts.
Mm-hmm.
That is what has saved me over and over again. But listen, I want to go on to some other things because there's so much about you that I find fascinating,
Well, thanks.
and interesting. So you have this Facebook group. What do you think is the most unique thing about your Facebook group?
Honestly, it's funny because again, I started it without an intention other than to stick with it and grow a community. That was it. And there are definitely ways that you can monetize a group better. And we're doing a reboot of our group here. But I think what's unique about it is just that I show up and engage. Like I don't look at myself like this is my group and I've got admins. I'm like, let's talk. And I've been consistent with it. There have been times where I've shown up and done lots more live streams or whatever, but it just depends kind of on what's going on in my life, to be honest with you. And the goal is just to support people. Like I don't know. Judgment serves no one. So I really try to keep that out of there.
I agree. So what would be like one of the most surprising things that you learned from running your Facebook group?
It's have you ever read They Ask and You Answer by Marcus
Yes,
Sheridan?
I
Okay.
have.
All right. So it's funny. One of the questions is, what's your biggest challenge with content? And you think that there's answers everywhere, right? Like everybody knows this already. I stopped collecting the answers after a couple thousand. Everybody is stuck with ideas. They don't know how to be consistent. They don't, and some of these are basic fundamentals that you could just Google and get answers to. And it's a matter of doing it. But they're, that hardwired for connection piece, people want someone to show them, give me the framework, show me this, hold my hand, let's do it together, that kind of thing. So I think the biggest thing is also finding the pieces of content or the things that you share that have nothing to do with business, but that are connectors, like where do you fall in the birth order? Like I don't ask a ton of those. One time I was gone and I was off for the day and I had an admin. And so they knew I was gone. And so they said, let's start a GIF war. And I was like, this is so fun. My group is like starting a funny GIF war with each other. So it's astounding to me that real connections and real relationships still, I've been doing this 12 years, really happen online. And you can establish trust and support somewhere as simple as a Facebook group. And there's trolls and there's people that jump in and spam. And I'm like, bye, get out. So
Yeah,
all good.
there's some neighborhood groups here in Chicago that my husband belongs to, and he tells me some of the horror stories of what people say and how they have keyboard courage, as I call it.
Oh yeah,
because they can hide behind that. But what you said earlier is people ask you how you do all of these different things is a really nice segue into. I wanted to ask, how do you juggle so much? I mean, how do you juggle between business and raising a family, maintain a work-life balance without going crazy?
It's been practice, right? Like it's gotten easier as I've gotten older. And again, my kids are out of the house and stuff now. And it was harder when I worked for somebody else, to be honest with you. I mean, I remember working 50 hours a week and dropping this one at soccer here and then going to drop this one off and then going to pick. I mean, my life was hell for years. And, I honestly think when you get to the other side of that type of a shit show, for lack of a better word, I'm like, there's nothing I can't do. Like, look at what I have done. And so the balance piece of it, I've learned to trust myself. Honestly, DJ, it's like I require a certain amount of white space in my life.
Mm-hmm.
If I can take a nap, that's great. If I feel like working, I take my laptop out at night, and it's like, whatever I feel like doing, I call it like gentle structure. Like, I have an office. I come into my office Monday through Friday. I work all the time. And I don't know. I love what I do. That's such a drive for me. And like, I honestly feel like my purpose is to create and inspire. My purpose in my life is to create and inspire. And so if I come back to whatever I'm doing and I'm putting out there, it's coming from that place, I'm good. And the other thing, like my business partner, her name is Jody Hirsch. She's phenomenal. And she's taught me a level of patience that I don't really have. Like, I wore productivity and busy like a badge of honor. Like, I was like, yep, worked 50 hours, took care of my kids. And then I cleaned the garage out this weekend. And it was like, I like just being, right? Like, I want to, like, I've gotten into meditation and I take the time for 15 minutes to go play with my dogs in the backyard and put my feet in the friggin' grass, right? It's like, and it's simple. It's really simple. Making sure I'm getting water, making sure I'm getting sleep.
The funny thing is I never really meditated, but I, over the last year or so, I get up at 5 a.m., sometimes earlier, and I sit in the leather chair in my studio, which looks out over Lake Michigan. You can't really see, but right out here is Lake Michigan, right? I watch the sunrise, and it's beautiful. And for an hour before I start my day at 6. So for that hour, I don't look at my email. I don't look at anything. I just sit in my chair. I hold my coffee and I just meditate. And I just try and let my mind relax. And then I start my day, which is always crazy. I can't tell you how much I literally enjoy that 1 hour that is just mine, right? And how much it has had a positive impact on my productivity, managing everything, managing multiple things as well. And I think that is so important. You have to have time that's yours. You white space, as you call it. You have to have that time where there's nothing going on. I don't want to see Facebook. I don't want to see the news. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see now the rage is TikTok or whatever. Yeah. But you don't want to see any of that. And I always recommend that, especially if you're an entrepreneur, to prioritize what your day is going to be like. And I'm listening to you, it seems like you do the same thing. And I read this book and I was trying to remember it and I was hoping it would come to me, but I can't. But it was talking about billionaires and how they structure their day and how they structure what they prioritize. And do you know that most billionaires pick 4 to 5 things, that's it. And then they focus on doing that. And I was like, man, I have 20 things. Look how busy I am. And as I started to declutter my daily life, all of a sudden the other things started to really move forward.
Well, yeah. And like, I'll reframe that because it looks like I'm doing all this stuff. So I've got the Content Creators Planner. We've got that brand. We're doing content and we're very involved with our ad agency. I've got my personal brand, a podcast, coaching and courses. Like, not having clients, I feel like I have all the friggin' time in the world. I mean, it's a completely different space, right? And so I think it's that I learned to, like, one of my favorite words is reframe, right? It's like, okay, well, how can I reframe so I don't get that FOMO? Like, I have a handful of sites that I like to go look at for tools or what's happening in tech and little things. And so I'm like, okay, I do that when I'm having my coffee or my tea, my first 30 minutes at my desk. And to me, it's like playtime. If something comes out of it, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like, I need that as much as I need the close everything, write the copy, close everything, create the podcast, whatever, so it's weird. Honestly, DJ, I feel like I have just kept at it and figured out what works for me.
What are your 2 Zen times of the day? Like, for me, I am not a night person because I get up so early. So I love getting up with the sun. And like now in the summer, it starts a little bit earlier than even I like to get up. But I like to get up early in the morning, but I go to bed early too. Yeah. So where do you find your most productive times of day?
It's weird. Idaho's only an hour ahead of California, and I cannot get on a normal sleep schedule. Go figure. But my most productive parts of the day is probably like 10 to 2. Like, I'm most creative, like to write. And then
me too.
I'm a total bath person, and I swear to God, water and electricity and stuff is so cheap. I'm abusing the hell out of it. I'm like, there's days I'm like, I took 3 baths because I could.
because
right?
you can.
Right. Or I'm like, my house is at like 71 all the time. And it only cost me $80. Anyway.
Oh my God, those are the days, right?
Right. Yeah. PG&E. Welcome to $700 bills. But anyway, so it's like, and then I take a bath every night, like at least one. It's like, I just unwind and I read, and I spent 10 years in the book industry. I'm a very avid reader. I love learning, but the truth is too, I am just as Netflix bingey as I can be, because I have to turn my brain off sometimes. So
that's what I always tell my husband. And I read a lot. I'm a voracious reader and I'm a voracious researcher, right? Like I want to be educated about what I'm talking about. But there are times that I just want to watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
And because it is brainless entertainment, and I don't want anything that's thought provoking or socially challenging or anything. I just want to be entertained, because that's how I recharge.
That's Harry Potter for me.
And that too. I mean, I like all those things.
Yeah.
I'm a big nerd. We can't talk about Star Trek or Star Wars with Nick. He's more Lord of the Rings kind of person. I like that too. But my husband says, "How many times can you watch those effing movies?" Well, every time I watch them, I see something new.
Well, or sometimes I don't necessarily like. I'm a juicer. Like I make compressed juice, and I'm like, so I've got my juicing on. I've got Harry Potter on. I like the music. I like how it makes me feel. It's like it's a connection to that time when my kids were little and we grew up. And I tend to watch the first 4 over and over because it gets super dark.
Yeah, they get.
I love them all. Yeah, but it's just everything I do comes back to how I feel. So if I want to create this content, how does it make me feel? Want to do a live stream? How does it make me feel?
Okay, so I got to ask, of all the characters on Harry Potter, who are your favorites? And why?
Okay, well, Harry, I love the hero's journey, right? Hermione, because she's just a tough little chick. I'm such a Gryffindor, right? The crew, Dumbledore, Hagrid. Although Professor McGonagall is pretty awesome. Although I don't know if I liked Maggie Smith more than Downton. Her character was pretty awesome there. I'm sort of that. You'll know this reference. Most people don't. I'm like the ever-loving Pollyanna of life. Like always the glass is half full. So I just probably, the original crew. Okay. I actually have
movie trivia for 500. Who played Pollyanna?
Haley Mills.
Okay. All right. You are a true aficionado.
Disney.
Yes, of course. But my favorite for the Harry Potter, what I really liked about it was just the friendship and the loyalty part. And, of course, who doesn't like the Weasleys? Right? They're just lovable. And Hermione, I always loved, because when I was a kid, I was always that kid. I was always like, oh, you think you're so smart because you read all the time and blah, 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 blah. And so I didn't have a large pool of friends. I had a few friends who were tight. And those two I related to the most. I related to the first Dumbledore. I had a hard time connecting to Michael Gambon. If you say his name. And of course,
Richard Attenborough was the first, right?
Who was Richard Harris.
Richard Harris, that was it. Yeah,
that's
Harris.
Right. And of course, Snape was like the tragic figure.
Oh my God!
And then as the movies went on, and you got more of his backstory, you're like, I get it now.
He's the ultimate hero.
He's the ultimate suffering hero.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry for the little segue, but I figured we'll just go off on that. But now I want to go back to. I have a couple of more questions. What is it like to manage a team of content creators? How do you know when to delegate tasks? And what part of the client work do you like to do best?
Well, I'm actually not doing it right now, right? But
that's right. You're not doing any client work.
I'm not doing client work.
Like best.
It's a consulting, right? This is where I shine. It's like I can look at a business and break it down, or go do a website review and look at their content and have a conversation. And it's weird is that I have really fallen in love with writing over the last, 7-8 years through doing all this. So I like to write emails for clients, but I like to do the strategy piece. And my daughter actually worked with me for quite a while. She's finishing up a film degree, and then she's actually going to nursing school. But so she did podcast editing, and so the managing of the team. I did enough managing in retail. I had an outsourcing company for a while too, of developers and designers and stuff. I don't ever want to manage people again. Right. I couldn't be very clear with that.
Sorry about that. That's what my friend did. She was in San Francisco. She did websites and so forth, and very successful. But she had a stable of people that she would basically subcontract to. So she would go out and get the jobs and then take a cut and then have all these people. And I was like, that seems like a lot of work.
It was. And then I'd have a project manager, and it was all sort of accidental. I did it because I was like, I didn't want to become a programmer, right? Like I know my way around WordPress, but I didn't want to learn PHP and stuff. And it was just like, I just kept going. And then I'd find somebody and they're like, do you want somebody on retainer? Yeah. And then they'd find me a designer. And then I started doing some coaching for people that had a similar business. And then they were like, oh, I need a developer and a designer. I'm like, oh, well, you can pay me a retainer. I've got those people. Everything has happened so organically just through continuing to show up and keep going.
I think that's the number one takeaway from talking to you that I agree with and I live as well is when someone asks me, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And I always say, you just show up. Because so many times you show up and you don't know what you're doing. You don't know exactly the pathway you're going, but you're showing up and the door is open. That's the number one thing. And that brings me to a question I want to ask is, I read on your website that you help a lot of young entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs. What advice do you give them? And what was the second? Advice do you give them and how do you help them? Because a new entrepreneur so often feels overwhelmed. So how do you address that? And how do you help them sort of organize their thoughts and get them on the path towards hopeful success?
Well, you know what? I always start with people that are newer and I'm like, what do you want your life to look like? So quick example, like we have a continuity program we're rolling out with the planner. And we had people saying, you should do a membership site like a year and a half ago. We're like, it has to fit our lifestyle and it has to provide massive value. So we took our time, right? It's 2 years now we're doing it. But so it's like, what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to work 7 days a week? Do you want a certain amount of freedom? Do you want to be on the phone all the time? So you have to be really clear. And half the time the clarity comes through the doing. That's what I found. I don't know I do or don't like something until I get in there and do it. But you have to start kind of with that, that roadmap a little bit. And then honest to God, if I could get this into anybody's head, it would be to master the fundamentals of direct response marketing. Truly, if you can learn to write, it's going to help you with everything. It's going to help you speak better. It's going to help you do better video. It's going to help you write better copy. It's going to help you communicate across the board. But, it's like there's so many tactics online. Like I love ManyChat. I think Messenger is a great, Facebook Messenger is great for events and getting people to show up to live streams. But if you can't write compelling copy, you're not going to get people to show up to anything. So mastering the fundamentals of direct response marketing, keeping it simple. Like my business partner always says, what would easy look like? What would easy look like? And you can go so sideways, but truly a simple website, an email list, and one offer. Get started and start selling as soon as you possibly can. I created a list of freebie seekers, in my opinion. Not everybody, obviously, but I was just hesitant, that imposter syndrome. Who am I? I'm not a real developer. I'm not a programmer.
Right.
And it was like, I was just sharing what I was learning and how I did it with WordPress. And it just one thing led to another, but I did not sell enough. Now I have no problem. I will send an email every day with an offer. Doesn't bother me. If I'm providing value and what I'm offering you can solve a true problem that you have.
Okay. So I want to ask a couple of questions from that. Number one is when you first started, how long was it before you said, oh, I'm making a living. I'm actually making a living at doing what I'm doing?
Within a year.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was because I was charging like $600 for websites, but ask me how many websites I had to make.
That's right. Oh, I know. And then the second thing is once you began, did you know that you loved what you were doing at the very beginning, or was it sort of like a growing love?
I loved online business from day one. There's so much possibility, like that Pollyanna in me, right? And it's just like, the audio tapes I listened to was Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and Dennis Waitley, right? And then I shifted and I found Wayne Dyer, who was just this amazing human being. And it was like, I shifted a little bit, but it's like, I love the idea that you get to make your life whatever you want. And the internet provides that. Like you really get to create what you want. And the fact is, like, I took my kids to Scotland in 2013 and we stayed with a friend that I met on the internet. I have friends in every country around the world. Like I said to somebody the other day, they're like, how's Boise? I'm like, it's great. I don't know if I'll stay here. It's kind of same story, different city. I'm in a suburban track home, right? The house is darling, but I'm like, maybe I want to go to another country. They were like, another country? I'm like, why wouldn't I? Like that's the mentality of online entrepreneurs. It's like, go anywhere, make it happen.
Yeah, go anywhere, do anything. And I often see, when young entrepreneurs ask me what they should be doing and how do they get started, and I said, well, what have you done? And they're like, I don't know. We're in the brainstorming portion of it, right? And I say, here's the deal: move forward. Nothing happens when you just stand on the shore waiting for it to happen.
Right.
You have to move forward. You have to take action. And I gave a speech one time and I talked about dreamers. And I said, do you think for 1 second that that you're the only person that has dreams or aspirations out there? And I said the content of the conversation was everybody has dreams and aspirations. But so few people act on those dreams or aspirations. They just wait. They wait until they're financially able. They wait until their health. They wait until their kids are grown. They wait until this. They wait until that. And next thing you know, their life passed by. And I always say, go, do it, start it. If you want to travel, go, find a way. If you want to start a business, start it, find a way. But you take some sort of action. And I'm often surprised about how many people have great dreams, but they don't take any action. They don't take any action.
I think we also live, I don't know, I think times are shifting, obviously, but, I know in the US, it's like there's such this pride in working hard and like this idea that you're supposed to, Monday through Friday and all that stuff. And all that's changing, right? Like my kids have different attitudes. But at the same time, you go to Italy or you go to another country and they're like, what's the rush? And it's like, that thought is so appealing. And at the same time, people get caught up in doing the same thing, right? Like what does a Disney trip for $5 cost to go stay at a Disney hotel? I'm like, you could take those kids to Europe and show them another way of life. And that sounds very judgy, but the more you can experience, like I want a richly textured life, right? And so, and all you need is one experience that'll shift that for you. That's it. One time and it's like opens your eyes.
That's right. And it doesn't have to cost $1 million. Like I've had a friend who says, I've been wanting to go to Europe for years and years and years. There are flights to Europe now, especially if you want to plan for a few months out, round trip to London for $300.
I had one for $500 in May that got canceled. Yeah.
By the way, I'm going to make a suggestion. And if you like to travel, you will love me forever. And it's called, you should join this thing, Got Cheap Flights.
Scott's Cheap Flights?
SCOTTS.
Oh, okay.
Scott's Cheap Flights. Oh. So I'm going to just tell you what I did. I booked 5 flights in the last week, right? Domestically. So we went, for my husband and I, round trip to New Orleans, $76 for both of us. Both of us.
Oh my Lord.
Right? Round trip to Boston at the end of October because we're going to go to Salem, Massachusetts for Halloween, which if you've never gone, you should go.
I love Boston.
But Salem is like the witch town. And in the center of town, they have a statue of Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched. Mm-hmm. They have the witch house, and they have the place where all the witches were. Oh, here's a fun fact. No witches were burned at the stake during the Salem witch trials?
That's all just story?
Yep, they were pressed or hung. That's the actual history of it. But anyway, you go there. It is effing freaky, first of all, because
I'm a skirt. I don't know if I can handle it.
Yeah. But it was very fun to go there. But make sure you have a safe place to stay because they get kind of crazy at night. That round trip was $120 for 2 people.
Oh my God.
I booked a round trip airfare to Savannah, Georgia. Round trip for both of us was $99 on American Airlines.
Holy moly. Well, the other trip I was supposed to take this summer was Costa Rica for a month because I was like, maybe I'll live in Costa Rica. And that got canceled too, but I'm totally going to look at Scott's Cheap Flights. Thank you.
And then what happens is it costs like $49 a year to join. It is so worth it. I get emails almost every day from them saying, here are the flights, here are the things. The only thing with Scott's is that they're weird, like they're unpublished flights. So you have like 2 to 3 days to book. So if you miss the window, you have to wait. But they just had a flight to San Juan, Puerto Rico for $129 round trip from Chicago for 2 people.
Oh my Lord.
But they didn't have the right dates, and we're booked up now through the end of the year. You can only travel so much.
And can we go? Can we try? I mean, I don't know if we can travel outside the United States right now. Can you?
Right. No, in some places you can, but Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying for less than $1,000, and plus we're going to Portland, Oregon twice. Portland, Oregon, for both of us to go is normally $1,000 round trip. I booked the flight for $520 for both of us.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm totally doing that. I'm signing
So
up.
anyway, when you book your first flight and you're like, oh my God, I just booked this flight for $70 for two of us, you send me an email and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So right.
You got it, DJ. I'll send you a handwritten note thanking you.
That's right. So because we love to travel, but it can be cost. That's what I'm telling you. That's the point I'm saying. Even with entrepreneurship, is sometimes you just got to do. You just got to do. You can't sit back on the sidelines, for God's sakes. Next thing you know, you're going to be my age. So that's what I tell young people. Don't wait for your life to fit into what you want. Make your life what you want it to be.
Absolutely. Well, and all of these skills that you need to learn online, you can hire someone to do it. Absolutely. But when you're bootstrapping, just friggin' do it. The time's going to pass, whether you do it or not. You're not going to get better at it by thinking about it.
So that brings me to this great question. What's it like to develop an online course? And do you plan to develop, to make any more courses?
Yes. So this has gotten really fun for me. And so I have a couple courses coming out, and the whole, I have to do it from experience, right? So the one course that I have coming out soon, I did because I did a free course for lead generation. It's called Content Traffic Kickstarter, right? Mm-hmm. And what I did, like everything I do, having been the scrapbooker, right? I like to color coordinate stuff. So I have a nice Google sheet and I map out the modules, and then I did the list, but I started teasing that course before I put it out. I got 500 people organically into that course in less than 10 days because I the way I promoted it and the whole structure. So then I thought, wow, this works really well. And so then I did a one-off workshop, and it was like $50 or something. I think I made $1,000 in a day. I was just like, you guys want to see how I did this? So now I've taken that and I've drilled super deep down, and I've done six lessons with like 4 or 5 modules, and I've got worksheets, and I'm giving them the Google Sheets that I did. And so I've fallen in love with the mastery and the creation piece, and like, okay, so now I've got a video script lesson because I can go off the cuff. I love doing this. This is really fun. But I'm like, what is the value? I want them to walk away. This is what you're going to learn. Here's the teaching points. Here's the takeaways. And so it's like, I've kind of fallen in love with the process of the creation now. So absolutely. So I've got stuff coming out for Kim Doyal. And what's been tricky is because I do content marketing on both sites. So it's like, I don't want to cannibalize one brand for the other, but it was my personal brand that gave us the audience, right, for the other one. But one is much more strategy. And I'm like, screw it. I get Kim Doyal to be whatever I want. Like, I get to be me. I get to talk about the intangible. I can talk about meditation if I feel like it. I can talk about, this tool I used. So back to your question of the courses. Yes, there's more courses coming. And I'm having fun with it. I literally trust the process. And this is where my therapist is like this life mentor. Like, she's retired. Like, I just won't let go. And so like, she challenges me. It's like, this is what I'm going to charge. And she's like, can you charge more? And I'm like, you're right. I can, knowing other people are. And that's that imposter syndrome, right? And it's like, right. No. And I think I'm just at a point, this was a Wayne Dyer thing where I said, like at 18, you're worried about what everybody thinks. At 30, you don't care what anyone thinks. And at 60, you realize no one was thinking about you to begin with.
That's exactly right. It's like, also, I think at 60, you're so confident. And like, I'm so comfortable in my skin. Mm-hmm. I'm comfortable with what I believe. I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm comfortable with my viewpoint on life, that I'm not easily swayed by the different tides of, passing fads or short-term upheavals. And I think there's a certain confidence that comes from it's sort of like when you plant a plant, at first you have, the roots are just below the surface, and they can get torn out really easy by, even a slight wind. But by the time you're my age, especially, or even your age, your roots are a lot deeper. Mm-hmm. And those storms are things that you may lose some leaves or branches, but you don't lose the trunk. You don't lose, the whole plant. That's kind of how I feel in a way. Mm-hmm. About my life. But and I think that's a great insight for you too. So I want to ask, this is something that I know people have asked me over the years, and I'm pretty sure, based on talking to you, that you've probably heard this. What do you recommend for someone who's trying to start their own digital journey, like in the first, let's say, to take their first steps? And if someone has an idea for an online business, what are the very first and formative steps that they should take?
Research is the first one, right? And it's that, that blue ocean strategy. It's if you think, if there's nothing out there for your business idea, it's probably going to flop, right? Like I was thinking about this when you said something earlier, and I'm sorry, DJ, but you said, you hear these sayings all the time. Well, there's reason like trite sayings last because there's truth to them, right? And so if there isn't, and if nobody's ever done it before, but there's a market for it, that's that one thing. But you have to learn how to validate. And then it's Seth Godin, right? Just ship it.
Yeah.
You have to put something out. Like I started teasing as soon as Jody had designed one layout for the planner, because I literally drew them by hand. I scanned them in, I sent her like the strategy, and I started teasing them. We had people going apeshit as soon as I started showing the spreads for the book. And so if you're getting started, do the research, make sure there's a market to sell to, get clear on your target audience. And then one of my most favorite books for all of this is Donald Miller's Story Brand. Like that turned things around for me. Like we've all heard the hero's journey, right?
Right.
And like you think of the hero's journey, most people place themselves as a hero. And so, but when it comes to marketing in your business, like how I phrase it, the Harry Potter fan I am, like I need to be Dumbledore and they need to see themselves as Harry, right? So I need to be that guide and that mentor guiding them along on their journey. And so really understanding, like do the research, make sure you have a market. I would build an audience. Your email list is your asset. And you have to have something to sell sooner rather than later. As soon as you possibly can, have something of value to sell. Even if you put it out there, like here's a great thing. Before I started coaching, I did one time, I'm like, I'm going to do a beta coaching. I didn't say the cost. I said, I only want 5 people. I had 5 people email me within an hour. They're like, I want to do it. I want to do it. I was like, I sold that before because I built an audience and I had a connection with them.
All right, Kim, I expect to see you with a DJ Doran show coffee cup at the next show that we do together. Cause I absolutely want to talk to you again.
Me too. This is great.
I don't think an hour is, or hour and 15 minutes or however long it's been is, I mean, I'm going through my notes and I think I'm a third of the way there because there's so much meat into what we're talking about. And there's so much opportunity. I think that, and in my mind's racing and I'm thinking like, I am such an idiot. I have such a large audience and I am just flittering it away because, because I'm focused on the bigger business things. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think of how I can help you, right? Because I immediately connected with you from like the first, 30 seconds that we started to talk. And I'm thinking to myself, I want to help her. And I want to see if I can.
Ditto. Thank you.
I want to see if I can use my audience to help you as well. Right. Because what you're saying transcends everything. It's about people. It doesn't matter that, about their sexuality or anything like that. This is good information for anyone that wants to have an online business. And that brings me into the next group of questions that I want to ask. What do you think is the future of workplace? Do you think there are going to be more entrepreneurs or many people going towards self-employment as a result of COVID? I have to tell you that I never used Zoom so much in my whole career. And
it was so funny when people were talking about Zoom. I was like, we've been using it for like 5 years. Come on,
Yeah, I haven't been using it. You see big companies say like, oh, we're having a Zoom meeting in the boardroom. But I've never even thought about using it for my podcast or for business meetings. And I mean, I am loving it. I am loving it to death. Mm-hmm. It's just a way, because listen, phone calls are good and they're fine, conference call, but having people there and you can
getting to see each other. Mm-hmm.
See a little bit. Now I do struggle with looking down and then looking at the camera. So you'll see.
I do that too. I'm like, Kim, look at the camera. Or like I lower my desk or I raise my desk. I'm like, come down.
I try and look at the camera. So it makes it feel like at least I'm looking right at you. But if I lower my eyes to look at the screen, it looks like I'm looking down. But anyway, so what do you think is the future of the workplace? I mean, it's changing right now. This is unprecedented. In my 60 years of life, I've never seen anything like this. This is like the impact of the Great Depression, where it fundamentally changed the paradigm of our lifestyles. And I don't think it's over yet, quite frankly. But
oh, I don't think it's over either. And, as far as the workplace goes, it's going to be interesting to look at which companies. My guess is you're going to see businesses that own the building may want people to come back to work. People that were paying rent, maybe like you can stay. It depends. And it also depends on the leadership of that company, right? Because there's something still old school about corporate America about you need to come and show up and sit in this desk where you may get more work from them if you just let them work at home, get the work done by when it's due, however that works, right? It's like, I wish I don't have a crystal ball, but like, it's a trip to me when I look at, like, I spent so much time in retail. I'm like, what is going to happen to retail? This is trippy.
There's a reason why Jeff Bezos is a gazillionaire, right? Because we almost order all our stuff through Amazon.
Absolutely. And at the same time, like I remember listening to Gary Vee one time talking about Toys R Us, right? Like so many people did not get online. Like I can't tell you many people, like I was an hour from San Francisco and I still had local businesses that were like, oh, I don't need a website or whatever. It was just like, okay. Like I totally stopped working with local clients for that reason. But, you look at Toys R Us and first they put their stuff in Amazon. Do you remember that? The Toys R Us store was in Amazon. But I remember listening to Gary Vee and he goes, they blew it. And I think this is where so many retailers have blown it, is that the retail store should be the experience, right? That should be experiential. Like what would Toys R Us have done if they had Lego classes or Lego competitions or slime building stations? And it would have been a destination for people to go to. And you can charge for those events. Parents are always looking for stuff, right? And so you think about that and it's like, retailers have to be smarter and there has to be a balance. I don't think all retail stores are going to go away, but when you start seeing, wow, Starbucks is closing 400 stores or Pier 1 is gone, right? And
right, who'd have thunk that? I furnished any apartment with Pier 1.
Right. Well, I worked for Home Goods, so here and
I love that store.
TJX is an amazing company, right? They're TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods. They've got Canada divisions and TK Maxx. Well, they're smart. It's off-price retail. They go in and they buy it after people have ordered too much or whatever, and so they hurt the traditional retailers for sure, so I think it's thinking outside of the box. We cannot keep doing business the same way we've done it. End of story. And I think that's happening even online, right? There's been all these internet marketers and gurus who have done millions of dollars. Well, if you cannot walk the walk and connect with people, I'd rather have a list. It's that 1,000 true fans. Give me 1,000 true fans over 10,000 people who kind of like me, and I'll sell more, so I think it's a really interesting time. I think that people who have the ability to learn and pay attention and do more listening and keep moving through this can come out of this like so far ahead.
A good friend of mine, we were talking about this the other day, is why would you spend money on a fancy office space when now everybody can do their jobs from home?
Right.
I think you're going to see a glut of empty office space. And so if you want office space, now would be probably the best time to sign a lease. But why? Why do you even need it? When you can have people on your computer screen. The only thing I miss, to be honest, is I miss the between human interaction, like sitting across and I miss that. But I don't think I miss it enough to pay $4,000 a month to have an office space that nobody really uses, right?
To me, I would go, that's $4,000 I can put into advertising.
That's right. And then the other thing is this new paradigm of doing business. The one thing you said about Toys R Us is totally correct. There's even in publishing, right? Regardless, you've probably heard print is dying and all of that, right? But in niche publishing, it's stable. It's pretty stable in local and regional publications. But you have these publishers that have been in business for years and years and years, and they are very slow to try something new or to think outside the box. And so their revenue doesn't dive. It is just slowly dwindling down and down and down until they are no longer profitable. And that's the challenge that I had as the president of NEMA, is trying to teach these old school publishers new ways to generate revenue or new ways to improve their current revenue. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think our industry specifically is going to be is going in for a very big shakeup. And for them, it's scary. For me, it's opportunistic, right? So that's the difference between entrepreneurs and people that just show up and do business. Now, I want to ask you something. This is probably the biggest question.
Okay.
How did you get into podcasting and why?
Well, because I loved audio, right? I spoke at my high school graduation. I literally thought I was going to be a motivational speaker at one point in my life. That was what I wanted to do.
I just want you to know I could totally see that.
Okay. Well, thanks. I might. And I'm only 50. I've got plenty of time. But, and it's just, I loved audio. I listened to so much audio. And I did, I was like, I want to have more fun. Pat Flynn was the first kind of marketing podcast I listened to. And so I had a friend that knew the tech piece. And I was doing WordPress and stuff, and my feeds generated from my site, and things have gotten so much easier. But that was it. I just wanted to have more fun in my business. And I was not attached to it at the time. I think there were a couple WordPress podcasts. And so I did it. So I would do a solo show, and then I would do an interview, and a solo show and then an interview. And people are like, how do you talk for an hour? And I'm like, well, I talk in circles sometimes. So I write out my episode. I put my thoughts in order. I don't read it, but I'm like, I just want to share and I want to connect with people. And
okay. So I'm going to ask you, this is what you said is a common thing, even for me. Do you prefer having a guest or having a solo podcast where you're just speaking by yourself?
it's this is going to be a very ambiguous answer, but it really depends on what's going on in my life, to be honest with you. Like, my mom passed away a year ago next week. Surprise. Horrible. Like, destroyed, like, broke my heart. 71. We didn't expect it. I just checked out. I was like, I don't care about marketing. I'm just going to get up and function and feel what I need to feel today, And so going through that, like, it wasn't fair to guests. My heart wasn't in it. And I showed up and I shared what I'd been through with her. And it was like, so it just really depends on what's going on. I'm at this place now that I think I'm on the other side of the intense grief. And so it's like, I'm totally doing a reboot. Like, I'm lining up guests again and stuff. And so it really depends. I take care of myself first.
Right. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I don't care how old you are. When you lose a parent, it is like an anchor being ripped out of the bottom of your secure ocean.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're adrift and you're like, oh my, I remember when my father died when I was younger, but when my mother passed and she had diabetes and it was a horrible process, I'll say that. But when she finally passed, I remember thinking to myself, I'm an orphan. Yeah. Like even though technically you're not an orphan because she didn't give us up, but you just feel like you lose that anchor. And my mother was Sicilian. She was little woman, but she's a firecracker, that one. But she never forgot a birthday, Groundhog Day. I'd always get something in the mail or whatever, send me $20 for my birthday until she passed away forever and ever. And then all of a sudden that's gone. And it's those things that you don't even think about, Kim. You don't even think about the impact. Like, oh, I used to call my mom all the time and just say, hey, I just want to see how you're doing, whatever. All that's gone. Death is so permanent. And I think it changed the way I view how I interact with the people that are still here.
Well, absolutely. I was going to move out of the East Bay after my son graduated high school last summer. And then my mom was in the hospital and then she passed away. And so my dad's like, they retired to do you know where Pioneer is? It's like an hour east of Lake Tahoe. So they retired out, right?
Yeah,
so
I know. We went through Truckee or something. It's not Truckee.
No, it's not. And so they retired outside of the Bay Area in like 2005. My dad was like, well, do you want to come up here for a little bit? And like, my parents just celebrated 52 years. Like, they were just this well-oiled machine. And so it was a really special time to get to connect with my dad. Like, I'm like, okay, I'll come. I stayed with him for 8 months and he knew I was moving. But it's just, I don't know. It feels like a changing of the guard, for lack of a better word. Like, I had my grandparents till like 2010. Like, I had family all around. Everybody was in the Bay Area. And it was like, so all of a sudden you look at it and you're going, okay, I've got my dad and I've got my aunt and uncle. And then it's like my siblings and I are the next generation and I'll be a grandparent soon. And so it's, what's helped me get through this. One is that I learned how to deal with grief and sadness because of my therapist. And I just let myself be super sad.
Yeah, that's the thing is I went through grief counseling as well because it was so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. My father passed. He passed suddenly. He went to work. He was 48 and never came home. It was like he was ripped. It was like a rip. Where my mother was a little bit different. We knew the end was coming. We knew the last year was hard. So we were prepared. And I lived with her the last year because, at the time I wasn't married. And so, of course, being the only single person, I have four brothers and one sister. Like, oh, can you go stay with mom? You could take care of her. And I did. So, but that year, as difficult as it was a long goodbye. So when she passed, as painful as it was, there was not anything left unsaid. And that is the one thing that I cherish more than anything else in the world, is that I got to say everything that I wanted to say to her before she passed, where I didn't get to say any of that to my dad. And it took me many years to overcome that because when it first happened, I didn't cry. I didn't have any emotion. I kept it in because, as a guy, you're like, oh, I can't cry. And I went to therapy and one of the things that I learned, even when I went to therapy when my dad passed, I didn't cry either, was that if you keep those emotions in, they're going to come out. Whether you like it or not, they're going to come out in an aberrant behavior or they're going to come out explosively. And so now I've learned, whenever I have those super strong emotions, to to get them out, to talk about
Yeah.
them, to feel them, to be okay to feel them. Because afterwards, as exhausting as it is, and I'm sure you can relate, it's cathartic.
Oh my God, completely. And there are times like and I start crying about my mom, and I'm like, I don't want to do this with my therapist. She's like, can you just be with your feelings though? And I'm like, okay. So I let myself have the tears. And it's when you allow yourself to feel what you need to feel, you do move through it. Right. And like, I have no regrets with my mom. Nothing left unsaid. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
But and I trust, like I really trust. I've got really strong beliefs and stuff. And I feel her with me. But it's just, you have to feel it. And so like, who cares about business when you're grieving? Do you know what I mean?
That's
and
right.
I didn't, but I'd built enough of a relationship too with my audience, and I'd shared the journey. I got nothing but love.
That's right. And that's the thing, Kim, is even people always say, oh, it gets, it gets better. It gets better. It does get better. You learn to deal with it, but it never goes away. The little things, like my mother's birthday is November 4th. She passed on May 11th, and I'll never forget it. I never forget the day, all of that. And so on those days, I'm hyper sensitive.
Yeah.
Everybody's celebrating Mother's Day, right? Because May 11th. And I'm like, I don't even want to acknowledge Mother's Day because it's such a painful thing. Now, she died in 2000, right? It's 2020, 20 years ago. And still on those days, I just don't want to deal with it. It is. And it took me, I think, 5 or 6 years to even look at pictures without getting extremely emotional. So I, as tough as I like to say I am on certain things, I'm a human being. We're all human. And those feelings are so strong, especially when you have a connection with your parents, like we did to our parents.
Yeah.
You can't help it. And I never want it to be just a memory. I want to always feel it because I want to know that I miss them so much that when that anniversary comes around, that I feel it, not just remember it. If that makes sense. Just like
it totally does. It totally does. And
just like you don't. It's just that relive it, and you feel those same feelings.
Mm-hmm. You do, and it's just you learn to live with it. And again, like I think if I didn't have such a trust in the way the universe works, for lack of a better term, that I was very angry when my husband died. It was a car accident. He was 32. I was pissed, because anger is so much easier to deal with.
That's so true.
Right? It's like anger is actually fueling. Like I can get moving again when I'm angry. When you're super sad, it's like you don't know what to do with it. But when you just allow it, it actually moves through you quicker. And
That's
so, right. I can think of stuff that makes me laugh with my mom, or stories. And we have actually a lot of video because of the times. And so I'm grateful for that. Or I've got a voicemail from when she sang to me happy birthday from the hospital last year. And it's like, but I have those things.
Well, I'm going to share the story. I've never shared it online. I'm going to share it with you because you've been so open about it. When my father passed, right? So I had not come out. I was not out. I was in the military. I couldn't come out, right? Yeah. And I really wanted to be straight. I was dating a young lady. We were going to be married. And I thought I could control everything. And so I was bringing her back to New York to meet him. And so everybody's planning. It was me and her and a couple of my friends. I was going to show them New York. We live close to the city. So I was like, we'll take you in the city. My family will, we have a Sicilian Irish family. You'll eat.
Have fun.
Yeah, it was great. So everything was good. And the next morning I get a call before we head to the airport. And I was living in Texas at the time. We get a call and it's my brother, my oldest brother. And he's like, "Oh, I just wanted to call to see if you're still coming out, and is Amy coming with you, and is everybody coming with you?" And I said, "Yes, we're going to leave for the airport in a couple of hours, and then we'll be there in New York tonight." And in the middle of the conversation, he burst out crying. He said, "He's gone. He's gone." I was like, "Who's gone? Who was gone?" And then all of a sudden, my Uncle Vinny got on the phone. Yes, I do have an Uncle Vinny, for real. He got on the phone. And he started to explain to me what happened. And I remember, Kim, like it was yesterday, I didn't even know how to react because my father was only 48. It's like, it just was like, I don't know how to react. And so then I told everyone and they And they're like, "Do you still want us to go?" I said, "Yes, let's all go."
Yeah.
And I was like a robot. No tears, no anything. I was just, let's go, whatever. We get to flight. Everything is, now it's not fun. It's somber. The flight's somber. Everybody doesn't know how to react. And we get to the house, and it wasn't until my mother came out that I knew it was real. It wasn't until I saw her that I knew it was real. And then everybody, it was so difficult. And I didn't process it. Like, I couldn't process it. And Irish and Italian, they have wakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
I was raised Irish Catholic.
Okay. So then we go to the funeral home the next day, and there's my father laid out and everything. And I was like, I couldn't function, but I couldn't cry or anything. I had no emotion. Went through the whole process, was there for my mom, was crying and all that, but I couldn't. And then long story short, I went back to Texas, and it came out in weird ways. I got in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So like, I got in fights, and I'm a pacifist by nature, believe it or not, Nick. You don't have to say anything. But,
he's like,
are you though? But I'm a pacifist, and so I was getting in bar fights, and I don't even drink. Like I have one sip, and then that's it. And I was getting in bar fights. I was like starting fights, and I was hanging out with the wrong people, and I got in trouble with the law. I was a passenger in a car that was stolen that I didn't know was stolen, and I got in all sorts of trouble and everything. Jeopardized my military career and all of that. But what happened is, I was very fortunate that a counselor, not a counselor, what do you call it? A prosecutor, knew that I was not a criminal. Like, they knew that something was going on. And then once they found out about my dad passing, they had the foresight to say, well, part of your probation, because I got probation, was to go to grief counseling with a Christian counselor, right? Now, I had just become a born-again Christian a few years before that. I know that's a whole other show. We'll talk about being a born-again Christian. It's whatever. But so I hated God. I had so much hate for him and everything, and so much anger. And this counselor would like poke me, like would poke that emotional bear, and I would never react. I was like, I hate you. I'm never going to talk to you. I am never going to talk to you about my feelings or what I feel. I don't know you or whatever. Long story even shorter, eventually it came out in such an explosive way, the grief, that I remember crying. I couldn't breathe. I I fell on the floor. I just could not stop. I couldn't stop it. It was, I don't know how long it was, but it was a long time. And I'm trying not to even get emotional as I'm recalling that moment, but it was a horrible, horrible moment. The moral of that whole story is that is when I learned that those emotions, even though I thought I was being a man by holding them in, they came out. They came out in aberrant behavior, in fighting, drinking, in anger, in being, almost ruined my whole life. So for 3 years, I had 3 years probation. For 3 years, I went through 2 years of counseling, and he was a Christian as well. So it was faith-based counseling, grief counseling. And first, I dealt with the actual death of my father and the guilt I felt, because one thing I didn't share is I was talking to him the night before, my father, and I said, and he was going on and on and on and on and on. And I said, Dad, I'll be home tomorrow and we could talk in person. And I kind of brushed him off because I was busy. And then, of course, the next day it was gone. And so I carried a ton of guilt. So I dealt with that. And then anger at God for like, wait a minute. Why would you do this to me? Why would you let this happen to me? What did I do to deserve this punishment? And for many years, Kim, it ruled my life. It ruled my life. I was a very angry person. I just a lot.
Yeah.
It took a while for that therapy to sort of stick and for me to recall and remember and really start living that, to be, I know you hear this word a lot, especially in our community, authentic, but an authentic life, an honest life. Say what you feel. Say what you mean. Purge it out. If you're angry, say I'm angry, because if you don't, then it turns you into a person that you're not. You may be that person underneath, but that anger, that grief, that strong emotion is going to alter who you are and who people perceive you are based on that. And it's not healthy. I can't even tell you. I thought I was having a heart attack all the time. I gained a ton of weight and then became diabetic, which I'm now type 2 diabetic. It's well under control now, but I mean, all sorts of negative things. I was just very cynical. That's why when you said you were Pollyanna, I was like, that's so not. I mean, I wish I had people like that around me at that time, because I had a lot of people, they don't know how to react, so they don't do anything. Like they're like, oh, he's really hurting, so I'm not going to say anything. But sometimes you want someone to say something, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and when you find those people that you can be vulnerable with, like, it's funny. I went into my therapist and said, I'm only here for grief counseling. I'm not doing any of that other stuff. I was exactly the same way. And it wasn't until 2011 and I made this conscious choice. I was like, I want to move through the rest of my life differently.
That's right.
I didn't know what it looked like, and I didn't know what it meant, but all this, like, and then I did like real therapy with her, but we're on spiritual similarities. And so it's like that she got me into meditation or testing breathing methods and learning to sit with something and be with your feelings and not label things good, bad, right, wrong, or whatever, And so it's just, I don't know. The other piece of this, I don't know how you feel, DJ, but I'm like, it's just life. None of us are going to get through this life unscathed without trauma and tragedy, right?
That's right. You know what my friend says? Nobody's getting out alive. Nobody gets out of living alive. And truthfully, I wish I could remember the whole saying, Kim, because I think I'd love this saying. It says, when I die, I want to go into the casket crazy, I lived a crazy life, whatever, sliding in and then getting into the casket and saying, wow, what a ride.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And not everybody's meant to do that though, too, right?
Not everybody's meant to do that. And I'm going to tie off our conversation, because otherwise I talk to you for 3 hours. But I want to say something that, two things. One is, my mother used to say, life is not a dress rehearsal. So live it. That's your moment on stage, the life stage. And the other part that, that I think is so important for people is live your truest life. Be who you are, because then the people that are around you like you and accept you for who you are. If you try and be something because somebody else is something, and you see this now with influencers, and they're always, I want to make it appear like I'm someone I'm not, or I'm rich, I'm this or that. I don't have that. And there's a certain power and comfort that comes from knowing that people like Nick, who we probably don't agree on a lot of different things, but he accepts me for who I am. I accept him for who he is, and so forth and so on. There is a comfort for that, because regardless of what we believe on a specific topic, we're still good human beings. And that's the thing that I focus on. And I'm going to say this, and this is my last thought. One of the things when I was coming out and I was like, Mom, I don't know how to be gay. I don't know how to do it, right? Because I'm a pilot in the Air Force. It could have ruined my career. I've always lived a double life. And she goes, well, I don't understand it. And all of that. But I will tell you that if you just focus on being a good human being, then everything you are, everything you are involved in will be filtered through that, and you'll be okay. And that saved my life, Kim, because whenever I thought, I don't know if I'm doing this right, or I don't know if I'm acting the right way, or I don't know how I should act, I always think I'm a good human being first. And then I'm okay.
Yep.
Now, I have something I want to ask you about burnout, and then we'll really tie up, I swear. What are your thoughts about burnout, and how do you combat that, especially for entrepreneurs? Because entrepreneurs usually wear so many hats, right? So, burnout. I'm sure you've been there. We've all been.
And that's from that not listening to what you need, right? I mean, at the end of the day, and the other piece of it, and I think entrepreneurs feel this: when you love what you do, like, you could live it, right? Like, I could, instead of watching something on Netflix, I could easily go watch YouTube marketing videos if I wanted to at night, or watch a course and do all that. But it's like, I went back to, God, it was a couple of years ago, I picked up watercolors. Like, I'd always been into art and everything since I had a scrapbook store and everything. Like, I had thought I was going to be a designer. So it's like so many things that I did as a kid, I'm living them in a different way. It's really crazy. Sure. But it's just, you have to step out of the same to get a different perspective, right? So whether it's, God bless us, going to the movies, which we can't do right now, but it's getting outside of the typical day-to-day. You have to shift. You know what I'm saying? It's when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So it's like, okay, well, maybe if it's just walking the dog and listening to a podcast, or, you know what, I can't listen to a podcast today. I need to listen to something spiritual, or The Greatest Showman or whatever it is. Like,
I love that movie too, by the way.
Oh my God. I saw it like 2 or 3 times in the theater. But you have to get outside of what you're doing. You have to get a different perspective, so that and burnout. And the truth is, if you try to push, this whole idea of resistance, like took me a long time to grasp, but anytime you're struggling, you're in resistance to something. So maybe I'm just in resistance to the fact that I'm really just tired and I just need to take a nap, honestly, right? Like my life has been tiring the last few years. Before my mom got sick, high school with my son was hell. Like, I couldn't have pictured it, right? And it was not, we're good, he's fine. But it was just one of those, it was really, really a hard time. So it's like I had this 4-year window of like, just get up and keep going, just get up, keep going. And I honestly think my body's like, you can sleep for 12 hours, so go ahead. And I'm like, all right.
Isn't that the truth? Because entrepreneurs so often think that they can't rest. Like, I can't stop.
Right, but when you do, I get twice as much done if I've taken a nap and taken care of myself than had I struggled. Or too many times I've written something, I'm like, I'm not publishing this. I wrote this because I felt like I had to, not because I wanted to.
Do you know, I'll share the story. Years ago, we were in the hotel business and we were doing all these big deals and it was a lot of stress, right? And we were going on vacation, and a few days before vacation, my husband's like, I'm going to kill you if you don't de-stress and stop being so crazy, right? Because I'm trying to figure out everything. And I finally get on the plane. I was like, all right, fuck it. If the whole company falls apart, I'm done. I've done everything I could. I didn't do half of what I wanted to do. Blah, 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 blah. We're in Mexico. I'm totally stressed. But back then, we had no cell service, right?
Right.
I am now completely disconnected from my company. And the only access I have is spotty internet that I could only use at like 10 o'clock at night that it would connect, right? We're there for, I think, a week or 10 days. We're flying back. I'm like, I'm ruined. The whole company is ruined. I'm totally ruined. And I'm just going to go back and face picking up the pieces. I came back, walk in the office. Everybody's doing their work. Everything's fine. And it taught me a lesson about, wow, the world will continue if I take a week off. From that point on, I remembered what my mom also said one day when I didn't show up. I don't know, you come out from an Irish Catholic family, you know that like we always have family dinner, right? Like if you don't show up, it's like a ripple in the force.
Yeah, family functions, everything. Everybody's there.
So I remember calling my mom on a Sunday and I said, Mom, I'm not going to be able to make it. I just got done flying. I just flew back. So I would rent a plane and fly myself to my base to fly. And then I'd rent a plane and fly back. I said, I just landed back in Westchester and I got another 30-minute drive to home. And by the time I did that, then it's another 45 minutes to your house. I'm not going to be able to make it. And she goes, oh, it's fine. You don't have to make it. I don't know how many more years I'm going to be alive, but you don't have to make it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to come out. So I drove out there, I had dinner, and my brothers and my sister left. And my mom says, hey, before you leave, I want to talk to you. And I said, what is it? And she goes, listen, there are priorities in life, right? And you set your own priorities. But I want to tell you about somebody who had priorities, who worked 6 days a week very hard and took Sunday off. She goes, God created the world in 6 days and he took Sunday off. So can you. And to this day, Kim, I cannot work on Sunday. I
what
can.
A gift.
I can, but it's like I feel I have all of that Catholic guilt. I just don't, and I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Yeah. So Sunday is my day, is the only day, and I pass this on to Nick too, is Sunday, you can take one day off. The world is not going to burn because you take some time off.
No, I just feel, when all this stuff happened with the pandemic and the protests and all that stuff, it's like, I had to get kind of quiet with myself for a little bit. And I'm like, how can you show up during all this? And I'm like, I can show up by staying in alignment, by being a good human being, continuing to do what I feel I'm of service to do. And so that's just it. And I'm not kidding you. There was a day this week, I was like, it was 1:00. I hadn't slept great. I'm like, I think I need to go nap. Literally, I dozed on and off for like 4 hours. It was fabulous. And I still slept 10 hours. I'm like, whatever's going on, my body needs to sleep. Nothing fell apart. That's it.
That's it. Well, Kim, I just want to say that two things. One is, I know that your mom is smiling on you down from heaven. I'm sure she is glowing with pride about how you've handled everything. And the second thing is, I have never had such an enjoyable time having someone on my podcast talking about everything that inspires me. And
Thank you.
you're just a wonderful energy, and I think that people are lucky to have someone like you to lead them in areas like. There's so much I learned from you throughout the whole thing. I took so many notes. I'm probably not going to remember half of it, but I thought to myself, what a nice way to learn something new. And I'm inspired by your energy. And I don't often say that, but I'm telling you that I'm inspired by your positive energy. So thank you so much for being on my show. And quite frankly, everyone, I could him for another 2 hours and I wouldn't even break a sweat. And probably we'd talk about more family stuff and emotional stuff and everything. And get in there, and I'd have to take a break to get more coffee and all of that. But I hope that you'll go to her website. I hope you'll check out her podcast. I hope you'll follow her and seek her guidance. And you just tell them DJ sent you. And Kim, I am inviting you right now to be back on the show in the future because I like I said, I don't think we touched on a third of what I really wanted to talk about.
Well, I'd be delighted, and I'm going to have you on my show too. So
absolutely,
I love it. I love it.
By the way, anything I can do to help, like I said, I have access to a large audience across everything, and I think a lot of people would benefit from that. And I'm happy to be a resource for you.
Okay, thank you. I will take you up on that. And I want to send you a planner too, just to say thanks.
Then I am gonna send you an official DJ Doran cup.
Okay, and I will proudly put it in camera.
There you go. Take care, Kim. You have a wonderful day, all right?
Thanks. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.
Big hugs.
Bye. Hugs.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.